Welcome to Four Quarter Lives, a podcast exploring the profound impact of longer lives and careers on everything: countries, companies, couples, and careers. I'm Aviva Wittenberg-Cox, and on this week's Four Quarter Lives, I talk with Lisa Goldsobel, Chief Operating Officer at Two Generations. What if there was a simple, elegant solution to two of the biggest challenges in our aging societies? One that could help older adults stay independent in their own homes while offering younger generations affordable housing in some of the most expensive cities. That's exactly what Homesharing does, and it's what Two Generations has been making a reality for hundreds of people across the UK. Lisa joins me to share how it all works, how they carefully match householders and home sharers to create meaningful intergenerational relationships, and why this is more than just a housing solution. It's a way to combat loneliness, support caregivers, and rethink aging in a more connected human way. We'll also dive into the corporate opportunity behind home sharing. As more employees juggle careers and eldercare responsibilities, Two Generations is working with forward-thinking companies to offer home sharing as an employee benefit. Lisa explains why eldercare is the next frontier in workplace support and how businesses can get ahead of this major demographic shift with an innovative benefit. So, whether you're curious about intergenerational living, looking for a creative eldercare solution, or wondering how employers can better support their aging workforce, this episode has something for you. Here we go. So today I welcome Lisa Goldsobel. Welcome to Four Quarter Lives.
Thank you for having me.
It's a real pleasure. So Lisa, start by telling us about this organization, Two Generations. How did it come about? What's the core mission? And a little bit maybe about your background and how you got involved in it.
So Two Generations is a social enterprise. It was founded in 2019 by Sam Brandman and Natasha Langelben. And they were really looking at the growing need to tackle loneliness and isolation, particularly of our older generations, and also a way to try and combat and support those who are looking for affordable accommodation, which is a huge challenge, both of those issues. So they put together this social enterprise. Homeshare itself has been running for over 20 years in this country, but in very small pockets around the country. What they wanted to do was build a much larger national organisation that could support householders throughout the entire country in finding sharers to live with them and help tackle that loneliness and isolation. And they contacted me. We had known each other for many years, and I had a background in housing and private housing support, but also in youth work and social care. So putting this together seemed like an obvious fit, and they asked me to join the team. That was in 2019 when there was three of us, and we're now a team of 14 people, including some wonderful volunteers as well as staff members.
Fantastic. So it seems like such an obvious idea, such a perfect meeting of two needs by, putting them together. And as you say, home sharing has been around for a while. It's a really fascinating concept, but a lot of people are either unfamiliar with it or really nervous at the idea of opening up their house. So give us an idea of how does it actually work in practice? What's the matching magic that you do? And what kind of impact does it then have on both the older and the younger sharers that you're working with?
So we found that Homeshare has a very positive, very dramatic impact on both householders, home sharers, and the families of householders as well. So we're contacted often by householder families or householders themselves just to say that they are living on their own, they're lonely.
So it could be the older person or that person's kids or family who's
Absolutely.
The older
Absolutely.
person. Yep.
People can make referrals. We're also now getting referrals from GPs, from social services, from charities, from councils that we work with. So someone will get in contact with us and tell us of a person who is living on their own, who is feeling lonely and isolated, who could do with a little bit of practical help and support. Our home sharers are not carers, so they don't provide personal care, bathing, dressing, medication, but they can offer practical help like cooking, preparing and sharing a meal, helping with some food food shopping, walking a pet, taking somebody to an appointment or a community event. And most importantly, giving that householder the reassurance of knowing that there's an overnight presence in their home.
So it's more companionship than care. So
absolutely.
Broadly speaking.
Absolutely. And we always say we don't find lodgers, we find companions.
Right.
So we get to know our householders really well and understand their requirements in a home share and what they are like as a person and the kind of people they enjoy spending time with and who they would want to spend time with in their home, because it can be a daunting experience, the idea of having someone you don't know living with you. Safeguarding is at the heart of everything we do. So there's thorough vetting of all of our home sharers in terms of references, enhanced police checks. We have trial periods, risk assessments, and we maintain a point of contact throughout the whole home share. So as we always say, we don't put people together and say, good luck, goodbye. We're there as that point of support.
So this is like way better than a dating app. This is like you are matching two people, but you do a hell of a lot more homework and preparation and introduction, guided introduction than your average matching app for humans.
Yes, we are also very lucky that we have some very bespoke award-winning matching technology that we use, because we have hundreds of home sharers on our database that apply regularly, and we're able to input the householders' requirements and the home sharers' requirements, and it will suggest to us the top sort of 10 potential matches. But then it's really when the personal touch comes into play, and myself and my operations team, who've got to know that householder, then interview those sharers and really get a sense of how we can make that perfect fit and how we can identify that common interest to create these long-lasting relationships and long-lasting home shares. And we've had matches that have been very happy together for 3-4 years, because we've taken those early vetting and matching stages very, very seriously and very slowly to make sure that we make the right fit.
So that's an interesting point. What's the average tenure of a match?
The average,
is there one?
It would probably, we've put together over 100 home shares over the years. I would say the average is probably just under a year. But as I say, we have plenty more that far exceed that. Of current home shares that we have, over half of them have been together for more than 18 months. So as long as everything's working well and circumstances don't change, the home shares continue very happily, obviously with our support along the way. And we really find that it is life-changing, not just for the householders who are now able to remain independent in their home, an option that they didn't think was necessarily the case, and for sharers who can now afford the accommodation that they're looking for. They can be saving themselves, living in areas that they're working in, not having to do ridiculously long commutes, because they can actually afford to be where they want to live.
Give us a little bit of idea of the financial reality of who pays what and how much, so people can understand.
So home share is not a rental arrangement. So there is no money that passes between the householder and the home share in terms of rent. Yep. But there is money that the sharer can contribute towards bills and utilities, council tax, etc. We have bursaries available for both householders and home sharers. So both the householder and the home sharer pay a support fee to 2 generations. To give you an example, the householder is paying something around £99 per month. And that's for 10 hours of dedicated support from their sharer. So 40 hours of support for £99 a month. When you compare that to the costs of private carers coming in to cook meals or help with food shopping, it's exceptionally affordable for people. Similarly, the home sharers are paying around £399 per month, and that's to live in a lovely home, not just to have a room, but to be part of the house, to have access to the whole home. And again, living in areas that they ordinarily might not be able to afford to. So compared to private rental costs, it's often a third, a quarter of the price. So it really works for both parties financially. And as I say, we make sure bursaries are available so that financials are never a barrier to either a householder or a sharer.
So there is a kind of contract between the parties, and the carer, or the younger half of this, I assume they're always younger, does have a minimum number of hours that they've promised to actively support the home owner.
It's important that we set out expectations and manage those expectations throughout the whole home share. So those are identified right at the beginning, explaining to the sharer the kind of support that the householder is looking for, explaining to the householder that this sharer is still going to have their own independent life. They're going to be working, see family and friends, go on holiday, but also have taken a commitment to give that householder that practical support. So we put together a home share agreement. It's not a tenancy arrangement, because as I say, it's not a tenancy agreement, but it's a very clear contractual agreement that states everybody's requirements. So always very clear to manage those expectations from the offset. And to answer your question, most of our sharers will be younger than our householders. However, we have very successful home shares where householders are more mature. They're in their 50s or 60s, perhaps. Their children have flown the nest. Perhaps they've never been married. Perhaps they've recently been divorced or separated, or they just feel that they're an age where they don't want to live on their own. Yep. And they like the idea of offering companionship. So there's no necessary cookie cutter in terms of what our sharers look like and what age they are, which is great because it allows us to make those bespoke matches.
So I'm sure you have a whole library of some lovely intergenerational stories and matches. Give me your favorite success story or two, your favorite matches that you've admired or seen.
As I said, I'm so fortunate that with putting together nearly 100 matches, we've got so many examples. But I think the one that stands out for me when we talk about that sort of common interest and common ground was a gentleman that we had who was struggling with his eyesight and absolutely loved opera and got in contact with me and said he spent his evenings listening to opera on his iPad. And he felt that due to his sight, he was nervous about preparing food. He wanted to have someone who could help with his meals and just give him a little bit more companionship and someone to talk to and share some interests with. And when we began our search, I was delighted to find a young lady who was training to be an opera singer at the London School of Music. When I introduced them in the matching meeting, they started talking what felt to me like another language about arias and different composers and music, and it was wonderful. I didn't understand half of what they were talking about, but it didn't matter because they did, and you could see that connection was there. And they were together very happily for a year while she was here completing her studies. She would practice and sing her opera to him. They also ended up watching a lot of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire together and really enjoyed that common interest and that common ground. So that one has always stood out to me. Another one. So
it must be very hard to end. I mean, particularly for the older gentleman in this story.
Yes.
See her go. It's not so obvious to find another opera singer.
She set a very high bar. It was a very high bar to meet. And actually, in a way, again, in terms of managing those expectations, we knew that she was going to leave because she knew she was completing her course. Yeah. So at least we were able to, and we went on and rematched and found this gentleman another sharer who unfortunately wasn't a great singer, but was a better cook, apparently. So,
an advantage.
Swings and roundabouts. So at least we always have the opportunity to then see ahead, to know if a share is going to end for any reason and then to put a rematch in place. Other ones, we've got examples where home sharers have come with pets and householders themselves have pets. And we've got a lady in Scotland, her sharer, and both of their dogs get on tremendously well and they all go for walks together on the heath. Often what really I find particularly rewarding is when I hear, not just from the householders, but from the family members themselves, who will spontaneously email me or give me a call to say, thank you so much for this wonderful sharer. Because of the sharer, I can sleep at night now, knowing that if there's a problem in the night, someone's there for my mum. If my dad needs to get to his community class or his dementia group or whatever it is, someone can take him. It doesn't have to be me every time. And it lightens the load for people and it gives them that peace of mind and that reassurance, which I think is just so valuable.
So I always thought this was such a fabulous idea. And I did try and convince my mom to do this. Stubborn and impossible as she was, she never accepted have anybody in her house. So give me the downsides. What are the most common concerns and obstacles about home sharing? How many people like my mom do you bump into? I imagine it's usually the home sharer who is, or the homeowner who is the reluctant party. Is that true or not?
I would say, sharers are always very keen. They understand the ethos of home share. They want to offer that support and they can see the benefits for them. And the majority of our householders feel the same. This is not something you can ever sell to people. It's got to be something that they feel comfortable with. So initially we will have people contact us like yourself and say, I'm just fact finding. I'd like to find out a bit more detail. I'd like to share this with my mum or dad and see how they feel about it. And we will always say, If they have any questions, if they have any concerns, come to us and we'll always do our best to answer that. I guess one of the biggest challenges is their concern that suddenly there's going to be a knock on the door and someone they've never met before is going to be stood there with a suitcase ready to move in. And we explain that that's certainly not the case. We take that process really gradually. We introduce them to sharers. There's opportunities for visits, for meetings with the family, weekend stays, trial periods at the beginning of each home share. So it's really taken at a very gradual process that people feel comfortable with. One of our day-to-day challenges is the average person on the street just doesn't know home share is an option. Right. And that's what we're trying to overcome, because for so many people, they feel their options are to have full-time live-in carers or even part-time carers at extortionate, unaffordable rates, or go into care homes, which people don't want to do and often don't need to do. So our biggest challenge is just raising the awareness and having people realise it is a really practical, positive care option for people. And of course, there are always questions with regards to safeguarding and the processes that we put in place to keep everybody safe, which is, as I say, is at the heart of everything we do. And we ensure that all shares are vetted and matched and thoroughly maintained throughout.
So you have a few years now of track record building this up very successfully. And again, it does seem like such an easy solution to two really intractable problems. One, for the older finding help, and two, for the younger finding a place to live in very expensive spaces. Now that you've kind of scoped that out, I understand you're sort of moving to explore how you might offer a support and introductions to the corporate world and workplace solutions or systems. So we're seeing a growing workplace crisis with employees juggling careers and eldercare responsibilities in our aging societies. What's the offering look like? How does two generations help employers support their workforce in this changing demographic landscape that we're navigating now?
Well, as you say, and it's great that you're seeing and acknowledging this massive shift and this massive change. And what we'd like to do is help future-proof the workforce, because it is going to be, and currently is, and is only growing, a huge challenge. From this year on, there are more people now looking after their elderly parents than there are their children. And
Can you just underline that news? I mean, that is really interesting. Yeah. The UK has just flipped. Go ahead, you share.
So, more people are now looking after their parents than they are looking after their children.
Talk about the shape of things to come. Huge. So that's a really massive flip. We've never seen this before.
No, it's a massive shift. Yeah. 1 in 4 employees are caregivers. So a quarter of people's staff have that care duty and are juggling that with parenthood and work. And on a daily basis, I think statistics show 600 people need to leave work that day to go support an elderly parent. So, and of course, of those people, a disproportionate amount of them are women. Over 60% are women. So there's a huge shift. We would like people to start viewing elder care in the same way as they do childcare. It's a requirement. It's not just becoming a personal issue, it's becoming a workplace issue. So we're launching Homeshare as a corporate benefit. We're giving companies the opportunity to demonstrate their commitment to their employees, to use it as an opportunity to retain the talent that they have. Often these people, I guess, are the Q3s, who are very experienced people who are very valuable within the workplace and are being taken away from their jobs.
Often very urgently, I think, like from one day to the next,
So to improve absenteeism, to improve general productivity, and to allow their employees to feel seen and heard and supported in terms of their commitments outside of the workplace. I think that's really important. And so what we'd love for companies to do is to offer Homeshare as a corporate benefit, to signpost their employees to us. We take on all of the work, so it's very little admin work for the HR team, but actually hopefully a huge benefit in terms of the productivity that they get back.
So and it's really no cost to them. Is there a cost involved?
There's a small account fee cost so that we are able to offer their employees a massively discounted Homeshare rate. But it's very nominal, and compared to what they're saving in terms of the absenteeism, I mean, I think across the country, across the sector, it's millions, if not billions, that are being lost every day due to absenteeism. So we really hope that this allows companies to see the potential of how it can benefit them.
So what's been the reaction so far? What are companies, are they recognizing this, or is there a bit of an awareness gap of employees are actually facing every day?
So far, it's been very positive. There's definitely an educational piece here for employers to really understand those kind of statistics that I've shared with you. And I think when they hear it, actually, and we're sharing this information, they are stunned themselves. And it's about identifying those companies that are the trailblazers, that are happy to take the lead and demonstrate that this is something that is going to be a growing issue. We're partnered with some well-known suppliers, Perkbox, Heka, Wellness Cloud, and other larger companies are really starting to make changes in their policies. There was a recent introduction last year of the Care Leavers Act, which I think was a big game changer. And it was a catalyst for people starting to understand. The Care Leavers Act allows people to have up to 5 days paid leave to support elderly.
Per year, per incident? What's the...
I think it's per year.
Per year. 5 days of paid leave per year to take care specifically of elders or anyone?
Sorry, no, 5 days. It's 5 days of unpaid leave.
Unpaid leave, okay.
Unpaid, but it's acknowledging that there is that need, that there is that requirement.
Yep.
So they're not penalised within the workplace for taking that time off to go and help an elderly relative for caring responsibilities.
I was just in France where they're legislating paid leave for the same thing. So typical of our two countries, between France and the UK.
This is why it's a step in the right direction, but it's not enough.
Yep.
And as I said earlier, to try and akin it to childcare and to understand that actually 5 days is great and acknowledging that it's needed is great, but we certainly need more. And hopefully with the sharing of information and looking at things like Homeshare, which helps to capture things at the early intervention stage and not let things get to crisis point where there is nobody else to support their parent, that they need to leave work and they're not able to take on the promotional opportunities or continue in a role that they can develop because of those caring responsibilities. So Homeshare gives us the opportunity to intervene early on.
Any companies or particular sectors that you've found enthusiastically open to this?
The retail world is particularly forward-thinking. Sainsbury's, I believe, has put in a lot of policies in place to support eldercare, and organisations where they acknowledge the workforce themselves are much older, that they not only are looking for support for their parents, but they themselves might actually benefit from Homeshare itself. So things are, as I say, they're moving in the right direction. People are starting to realise, people are starting to sort of wake up to the potential. And I think it's important that people get ahead of this because it's only, as you know, with Q3, Q4, it's only building. It's only going to become a bigger issue. And the sooner people get on top of it, the better.
Yeah, and this is a really interesting, inexpensive kind of win-win solution for companies and their employees. So I'll be very curious to track how we're doing on that. I'm still inviting companies to measure how many of their employees are over 50 because they don't always yet even count or know that they have an aging employee population that may not be quite on their strategic radar yet, but it's coming.
That's why the ongoing relationships we're having with HR managers, with benefits managers who really understand the demographics of their organization and are hearing firsthand their needs are the people that are coming back to us and saying, yeah, this is something that I think our workforce could benefit from and could certainly feel supported by.
Okay, so there's the individual win-win, there's the corporate awakening to this potential opportunity and benefit for workforce management. Let's zoom out a little bit to conclude and kind of look at cultural attitudes and the future of intergenerational living more broadly. Are there some countries or cultures that you've modeled on or heard from that are more open and advanced to home sharing? Are the British jumping on this enthusiastically? Where do we stand?
We stand somewhere in the middle. I think we stand cautiously interested, and we're dipping our toe in the water and certainly trying and acknowledging that it is an option. There are obviously, I think there are other countries and other cultures that do intergenerational living a little bit better than we do. Asian cultures particularly almost naturally live in a multi-generational way. Parents and grandparents, large families living together and supporting those generations. I think that's something that we would like to try and model, but I think what will get us to that point is just raising that awareness so that the person on the street knows that Homeshare is a really realistic, feasible, affordable, wonderful care option for people, whether you are the householder, the home sharer, the relative, the friend, the neighbor, whoever it might be, knowing that this is something that is available for people, readily available and easily accessible, will help to change that shift and to change that dynamic.
Yep. And
to keep the conversations going. That loneliness and isolation is hugely devastating for a lot of people. I mean, there's statistics that say loneliness is the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes in a day. The effect that it can have on you physically, mentally, socially, and the difference just having a person coming home each evening, sharing a meal, sharing a conversation, driving you to an appointment can be life-changing for a person. So understanding that those relationships intergenerationally can be enhanced at every opportunity, I think is really important. And I think we're getting there. As a country, we're getting there, and the penny is starting to drop. And the more conversations we can have like this and the more awareness we can raise, the better.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? I think the Anglo-Saxon world generally rates the highest on individualism. And I think that's really developed this idea that, you have to be able to live on your own as a sign of success. And it's so interesting to see us as we evolve in society and see these demographic pyramids reshape, how we might go back to a very different way of living together.
Absolutely. And that success can be shared.
Yeah.
Two people learning from each other, growing with each other, sharing experiences can only be a positive thing.
Absolutely. So looking ahead, Lisa, what's your vision for 2 generations in the next 5 years, let's say? How do you see this intergenerational living? Is it going to evolve into a really mainstream solution?
We believe so, yes. I mean, we want to firmly establish it within the corporate world in terms of benefits. We want to grow the awareness so that it becomes an obvious solution when people think about how they're going to look after their parent, their friend, whoever it might be, that Homeshare is just a natural option for them to explore and make it widely accepted, not just a niche idea, but something that can benefit people, employees, society as a whole. That's what we'd like to do, to grow it and to develop it even further so it's something that's accessible to everybody.
So let's start. In conclusion, how can listeners learn more, introduce their mums or their grandmums, get their employers to meet with you? Where should they go and how should they reach out?
They should absolutely head to our website, www.twogenerations.co.uk. On there, there's a wealth of information from all of our corporate benefits offering to our Homeshare model. There's a wonderful page that I'm always very excited about of testimonials and case studies where you can actually hear from people themselves who've had that lived experience, from householders, from home sharers, from family members, talking about how Homeshare has benefited them. There's obviously contact details if you want to give us a call as well. We're always very happy to have a chat and answer any questions that anybody might have. We always want the opportunity to reach out and engage and share as much as we can about the benefits of Homeshare through 2 generations.
Lisa Goldsobel, thank you so much for sharing your vision, sharing what you're doing. I'm a little reassured, I must say, to see all these things emerge as I push into my mid-60s, because I think, I don't want to be alone when I'm old, and I would much rather have some young opera student singing away to me. And I think it's wonderful to see all this emerging, hopefully in time for a whole generation.
I hope so too. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. For more thinking about the impact of our 4-quarter lives, you can read my column at Forbes and subscribe to my Elderberries newsletter on Substack. Let's design lives that aren't just longer, but better.